my name is Karul Binti Badaruddin and I am the first presenter. Okay, Islam welcomes development and change as long as it does not go against the Sharia principle usul and purpose maqasid. As it is said by our scholar, al-muhafazatu ala al-qadim al-salih wal-akhadhu bil-jadid al-islah. Preserving good old values and adopting new better values. Without innovation, Islam cannot advance and grow. It has been conducted and initiated in early Islam and practiced by many of the leading ulama. Some terms refer to innovation in Islam, such as Tajdid and Islah. Tajdid and Islah both refer to the resurrection or revitalization of Islam, starting with restorations and change required in some respect that have taken faith, unity, and harmony of Muslims. The change are not the fundamental teaching, but to eliminate bid'ah and provide a new method or interpretation in line with Sharia. Meanwhile, reform is a root in Western civilization and advocates secularism. It replaced God with science and rejects references to the past and has established new approach that result in new ideologies of belief. The French University's Encyclopedia explained that modernism is the use of mind, science, and technology stripped of all value or value-free. Value-free world is one that is also disassociated from human being. Everything becomes relative, and it becomes impossible to distinguish between good and evil. Based on the research question, the objectives in this study are as follows. First, to identify the concept and definition of Tajdid, Islah, Reform, and Modernism. Second, to describe the historical emergence of Tajdid in Malaysia. Third, to delineate the level understanding of Muslim teenagers on the concept of Tajdid, Islah, Reform, and Modernism. This study was conducted to examine the level understanding of Muslim teenagers on the concept of Tajdid, Islah, Reform, and Modernism. The methodology utilized in this study is quantitative. Questionnaire surveys are employed to collect finding of quantitative data. The process was followed by collecting and analyzing data and finally preparing the research report.
The concept and the definition of Tajdid, Islah, Reform, and Modernism. According to Ibn Manzur, the word Tajdid is derived from the Arabic words Jaddada and Yujaddidu. Tajdid means sayyarahu jiddan, which translates as to make it fresh or breathe new. Abu Majid and Ramli mentioned this indicates that Tajdid is an effort to increase Muslim and mankind overall knowledge of Islam, rather than to improve Islam itself. The perfection of the knowledge, on the other hand, is attained by human transformation, not through Islam. This is because Islam is a religion of God revelation and its teachings are faultless and without flaws. Next, the term Islah is derived from the Arabic word Islah. Ibn Manzur clarified in his book Lisan al-Arab that his opponent phrase is damage, fasad, which indicates to repair or reconstruct anything that has collapsed or been harmed. In other words, Islah is a movement or endeavor to restore the condition and belief of Muslims who have drifted from the real teaching of Islam, as found in the Quran and Sunnah. For example, by calling people to follow what the Prophet taught as a Muslim to the early generations. However, Usman al-Muhammadi stated that in his perspective, reform has a wide variety of meaning and implication, such as making anything better, correct, reasonable with a suitable position, prospering, well organized, reducing the essential reform, and improving, and so on. Additionally, Muhammad and Rida clarified that the goal of religious reform is to mobilize the Ummah against Islam in its holy and pure reform. Is it a process of improvement or change aimed at returning individuals to the authenticity of complete Islam? Lastly, according to Majlis Agama Islam Selangor, modernism is a structural or form change that rejects religion and values, begin with rational understanding, materialism, hedonistic flaw, and anarchy, abandoning a new pattern of life that is strongly opposed to religion. Nasution elaborated on the concept of reform, stating that the word Islamic reform is regarded as tajdid from Arabic translation and modernism from Western terminology, and the term modernism is improper to use in Islamic reform since it has a negative perception. The historical emergence of Tajdid in Malaysia. A study by Tahir Yusuf and Abdul, the Islam and Tajdid movement began in Malaya in the late of 19th and early 20th century with a diverse group of Malay students from Egypt. During their time in Egypt, the Islam and Tajdid group led by Sheikh Jamaluddin Al-Afghani and Sheikh Muhammad Abdu extended rapidly to other Islamic nations. Ahmad mentioned two early Malay figures who pioneered the Islam and Tajdid movement in Malaya is Sheikh Tahir Jalaluddin in Perak and Syed Sheikh Al-Hadi, who were active in spreading this ideology through newspaper and magazine correspondent at the time to arouse the spirit of Malay nationalism. Kamil revealed that the majority of archipelago intellectual during the period of inspired by tasawwuf science concentrated more on the topic religion, believing that modern science was less essential at the time. One of the Islah movement is PAS, which emerged from the Malay community's recognition of the significance of removing Western colonialism and establishing Islamic sovereignty in Malaysia by adhering to the Quran and Sunnah. To conclude, a study states that it may be claimed that the development of Islam from outside, especially the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and the Jemaah Islami in Pakistan and the Iranian Revolution, impacted the establishment of various Islah in Malaysia. The external influence, consistent with the intellectual growth of the Malay community at the time, prompted many to seek similar studies inside or beyond nation.
My name is Aina Shazana. I will continue with Chapter 3. The findings and analysis are presented according to the research objective. The overall objective of this study were to assess the Muslim teenagers' understanding toward concept of Tajdid, Islah, Reform and Modernism in descriptive analysis. This part was used to analyze the respondent demographic characteristics that were obtained from the survey and use the analysis to make general observations from the data such as name, gender, age and occupation. The study intended to seek an opinion from both male and female on the Muslim teenagers' understanding toward concept of Tajdid, Islah, Reform and Modernism in Malaysia. There was a total of 30 respondents who participated in the survey questionnaires. 13 of them were male, which was equivalent to 43.3% of the total sample, and female were 17, equivalent to 56.7%. About 10 of all participants, equivalent to 33.3% of the total sample age between 13 to 19 years, whereby another age between 20 to 24 years old accounted for 36.7% of 11 participants. On the other hand, participants who were 25 years old and above accounted for 30%, which is a total of 9 participants. About 20 of the participants, which was equivalent to 66.7% of the sample, were students, while 10 respondents were working, accounted for 33.3% of the sample, and no respondents were unemployed. Finding of research question. To answer research question for the study of Muslim teenagers' understanding toward concept of Tajdid, Islah, Reform and Modernism in Malaysia, descriptive statistics was carried out and analysis was done. Overall, respondents have a good level of comprehension about this topic. In question 5, a high percentage can be seen on the answer choice agree that Tajdid and Islah refer to the resurrection or revitalization of Islam, starting with restoration and changes required in some respect that have taken faith, unity and harmony of Muslims, with a percentage of 73.3%, but as many as 23.3% of respondents choose the answer unsure to this statement. Next, a large percentage of answer selections not agreed in question 3, with 63.3% disagreeing and 20% agreeing. This indicates that the respondents do not agree that Islam rejected on reformation or innovation totally. The study of question number 10 revealed that respondents agreed with the statement, with 70% voting against the answer choice agreed and 6.7% voting against the response choice unclear. This indicates that most respondents believe Western reform is not Tajdid. According to descriptive findings, most respondents showing a high understanding of Tajdid, Islah, Reform and Modernism in Malaysia. However, several respondents expressed skepticism about this thought. This could be due to a variety of factors, including a lack of knowledge about this concept. As a result, the efforts and movement of Islah and Tajdid are a need of the Ummah throughout the country, especially when the Muslims are facing an internal crisis that is further worsened by Western intervention.
Conclusion. The concept of Tajdid and Islah have strong evidences in Islam based on the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet. Tajdid simply means renewal. According to Hashim 2013, renewal as a concept involves the occurrence of some change in the subject matter to which it is applied. Something is known to have existed in an original condition before being overwhelmed by circumstances that modified it. Tajdid is when it is restored to the way it was before the modification. And lastly, through this research, we can conclude that the respondents have a good level of understanding regarding the concept of Tajdid, Islah, Reform and Modernism. However, some of them still show uncertainty regarding this concept. So, the Islamic scholars and intellectuals play an important role to educate the younger generation about Tajdid, Islah, Reform and Modernism. The threat of any doubtful ideology or heretical teaching can be avoided if the society thoroughly understands the Aqidah and Sharia taught by the Quran and Sunnah. For example, the movement of heretical teachings must be countered in the right way as taught by the Prophet. We must not modify, add or remove whatever the Prophet taught, but instead just restore the teachings by developing a particular manhaj that helps other Muslims to comprehend Islamic faith according to the Quran and Sunnah. Muslims in this country must cooperate to protect Islam from the ideology that can damage our faith and lead away from Islamic law. And the last one is, the future researchers are recommended to carry out further research about the factor of tajdid, which was not covered in this study.